Thank you so much for joining us, Deacon Rey. And you are, and correct me if I'm wrong here, the youngest permanent deacon of St. Faustina Catholic Church.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Yes,
Right.
I definitely am.
You're the youngest one. So we've got you, we've got Deacon Randy, and we have Deacon Ernie as our permanent deacons.
Yes.
And then the other type of deacon
is the transitional deacons.
Transitional deacon. Yeah. Okay. And those are the deacons that
they're transitioning literally. They're in their last year in their priestly formation, and so they will become ordained priests next year.
Okay, and we have two of them here right now.
Yes.
We have Deacon Joseph and Deacon Houston.
Yes.
Okay, and Father David Michael was a transitional deacon here.
At one time, not here.
That's right.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. We had at the time Deacon Ryan here.
Yes.
Who's now, and even before him, we had Deacon Matthew. So
Deacon Matthew, yes.
We have been very blessed to have very good transitional deacons. Not to say they're not all good, but I think we've had the best ones.
So, is there any chance of a permanent deacon? Like, let's say, God forbid, in the future, something were to happen to your wife, and you know, your kids will be all grown up. And is there any chance of you becoming a priest? Is that?
I mean, canonically speaking, yes, but it's very, very, very rare, and it has to get the approval of the cardinal or bishop. We have a cardinal, but the bishop of any diocese. But it's going to be rare. I mean, every situation is going to be different.
Of course.
I personally know of two deacons in which that happened in archdiocese, and they had applied for it, and it didn't happen.
Okay.
And a lot of that happens to do with age. So you're thinking, because it's two different formations. The formation in which we go through as a deacon and the formation as priestly, it's actually two different roads. I mean, sure, they may be parallel, and sometimes they interact, they intersect, but it's very different. So you're asking a permanent deacon who probably, we pray at this point, are up there in age, to go to become a priest. They literally have to do the whole 8 years. There's a different theology degree they have to go through, right? There's different missions they have to do.
Okay.
And most of these deacons have family; they have grandkids.
That's true. Yeah. So take me through the process of, because since you were like I said, you're the youngest.
Yeah.
You like how that sounds? The youngest permanent
yes,
deacon
I like that.
of St. Faustina Catholic Church.
I know.
So how does the process start? How long does it take?
The total process is 7 years.
7 years?
Yeah,
wow.
It's a long time. So the first year, they call it discernment.
Okay.
At this point, your priest, a priest, and even a deacon could come to you and ask you, hey, have you ever thought of the diaconate program? And so if you're interested, they take your name down, your email, and you get an email being invited to go to a meeting. It's just a information meeting.
So when you did it, did somebody approach you, or did you approach somebody?
Yeah. So as far as going into the formation, so at my parish before at St. Bartholomew in Katy, Texas, it was our pastor at the time, who was Father John Caw, who asked me.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I know when it was first introduced to me, I'm just like, like almost probably every man, there's no way. But my grandmother, she has a very big hand in raising me, and she's always told me, when the priest asks you to do something, say yes. So I'm like, okay, I'll say yes. They'll probably kick me out.
I can't imagine the pressure, and a lot. Do you want to become a deacon? Oh boy, wow, that's
and that's the trap, Rudy. That's the trap, in that you can't look at the whole. I said 7 years, but you can't look that far.
Okay.
You literally take it one meeting at a time, and then one class at a time.
Okay.
Right, and then 1 year because it's a journey. An example. When you go to these information meetings, and the first year, you go to the first meeting with your wife, everything, and I'll talk about that. Your wife has to attend every class, every meeting with you.
Yes, I mean, I understand there's a lot of requirements as well for your wife.
Yeah, and so when you go there, the first meeting, it's kind of funny because they're trying to scare you. They're trying to scare you away. They give you these questions, and they're like, and you're looking at your wife like, oh my gosh, and they're not being very nice about it. And so you learn
Really?
this is a good process because they want to make sure that you're calling, right?
Okay.
Because if it's your passion, if you feel the Holy Spirit calling you, you shouldn't be so easily scared away.
Yes.
And they give you these questions, and they literally tell you, go home, take a few months to answer these questions. If you're still interested, we'll send you another email, and you can either answer you're coming or answer you're not coming.
But what was the scariest thing that they told you?
This is the time sacrifice it's going to take. How do you feel about having to miss anniversary parties? How do you feel about having to miss your child's birthday party?
Oh.
See, they hit you right at the core because everyone going in there are married men.
Yes, yeah.
So, and the wives, and they're targeted toward the wives because any good married man knows that your true boss is your wife, right? And so, if you want to be happy, if you want to live a happy life, and so they target the wives, which is a good thing because these are the sacrifices you have to make. And so, if you go back, and then after that takes about a year of discernment, then you start your classes. And these are prereqs.
So a year of how periodic? How periodic are the meetings?
You go only to 2 meetings.
Oh,
they
okay.
give you that much time to. It's like ice the kicker type thing, So it's just 2 meetings in that year.
I like how smart it is that they ask you to bring your wife as well because if it was just the men, every single man there would be like, okay, that sounds nice. Let me go home and talk to my wife about it.
And they're very strict, and there's a reason for that, which we'll get to later. If you show up without your wife, they'll send you home.
Really?
They'll send you home. She has to be she's got to be there, and it's very crucial. She is. It really is.
What about widowers?
Widowers
are they common? Not really.
Well, we've had actually. It's common. It's
really?
common.
Okay.
Yeah. And we've actually had one gentleman who was single. And,
oh, wow. Okay.
Single. And you think to yourself, well, why not be a priest?
Yes.
Well, because as a priest, as you will know, the archdiocese is your family.
Yes.
And so many of these single men, they're very involved in their business and their secular life.
Okay.
And they want to keep that, but they feel that God's calling them. So in my class, we had one who was a single man and a widow, so that you mentioned it, yeah.
Okay. So I got a question. So say something, I'm jumping ahead here.
Yeah,
though,
that's fine.
But let's say something does happen to your wife. Mm-hmm. Are there rules with getting remarried, or are you not allowed to get remarried? Or if you do meet somebody, do they have to go through the classes?
That's a perfect question because it's going to answer what I mentioned earlier about why the wife has to be there. And I always joke about this, and a lot of us men do, that the reason why our wives allow us to become deacons is because if they were to pass away, we could never remarry.
Oh, really?
Never.
Okay, that's the rule. It's a hard rule.
That's the rule, and it's a hard rule. There's an exception, which I will explain in a minute, but the reason behind that is what you just mentioned, the formation itself.
Yes.
They walk the walk with us.
Okay.
They know the sacrifice. If we're at a party, if we're having my son's birthday party and I have to leave, my wife's going to understand because she went through the whole spiritual process with us, right? A new wife wouldn't understand that.
Okay.
And it could cause marriage problems. And that's one thing, especially here in our archdiocese, the cardinal watches us very carefully throughout the formation to make sure it's not putting a stress on our marriage.
Okay.
Because that's our first ministry. My first ministry is a husband, right?
Yes,
first and
of
foremost. Course. And so, so the only exception to that would be if I had a small child, maybe a 2-year-old child who would need a mom to help me raise them.
Okay.
Right? Okay. And so there's that. But the reason why that's rare for 2 reasons. Number one is because we're a community, right? As Catholics, as Christians, we're a community. So to say I wouldn't have other family who couldn't help me raise my child, that'd be very rare, especially as a Catholic person.
Yes.
And number 2, let's look at it would kind of make my wife be like her only reason for existence was to be a caregiver, right? And it's like that could easily be replaced, right? And it's not true, right? There are better halves, right? And so, yeah, though the rule is there, it's very, very rare that they would accept that. Yeah.
Okay. And so going back to the process, so after that whole year of lessons, discerning, of you and your wife, then come the classes?
Yeah, these 2 years of classes. And these classes are prereqs classes, right? So they're basically taught by deacons who are part of the formation team. And then after those 2 years, so you go during those 2 years, once a week is your academic class. It's either going to be on a Monday evening, Tuesday evening, or Wednesday evening for 3 hours, 7 p.m. to 10 o'clock.
And this is every week?
Every week.
Okay.
During school year, right? It's normal school year.
Okay.
And then one Saturday a month for spiritual.
Okay.
Early in the morning. You have to be there 8 o'clock and you're there till no earlier. You're there till 5 p.m.
And this is you and your wife?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. This first 2 years. After those 2 years, then the nervous comes because that's when you find out whether you're actually accepted officially into the program.
And is there a whole vetting process?
Yeah.
They look into your background and everything?
During the 2 years, you're taking numerous psych tests, psychological tests. One of them is literally an 800 question. And, you just shade in, multiple choice, you shade in. And you get to pick up after a while that they ask you the same question many different ways.
Okay.
Right.
And what questions are those mainly?
An example would be, and it's funny, have you ever got angry at your wife?
Okay.
Right. I think every married man could say yes, right? So what do you do when you get angry? And they give you these options.
Okay.
And so you go through those. Of course, you go through financial credit check.
Okay.
Right? Because to be a deacon, you have to be a responsible person, right?
Of course,
they look at your what do they call it? Your what you owe, your ratio, right? How much you owe to how much you make, and all this good stuff.
Yeah, make sure you're not one of those types that'll embezzle funds or something like that.
Yeah, or just even bill collections. I don't mind sharing this. So my first son was born in 1994 in August, and they say, hey, we have this $614 medical bill in 1994 that you never paid. Wow. That's never even came up when I bought my house, I bought my car. I'm like, I was like, the formation are more strict than IRS,
That's
and
like,
I'm like, I didn't know about that.
It's audit level things.
It's very audit level. It's very audit level because one thing they'll continue saying is that we're going to begin to live in glass homes, right? We have to be very transparent what we do and everything. And so, after those 2 years, your last class, they literally put on a PowerPoint everything that's required to be a deacon, and it's a lot. And I think the reason why they do that is for those who are outright denied,
or
those who are postponed.
What questions or sort of answers would like immediately disqualify you from becoming a deacon?
The obvious stuff that you could think of from alcoholism, if you went through that,
drug abuse, that type of thing.
Drug abuse, criminal record. We're not perfect. We're not called to be perfect, right? That's no way, because especially as deacons, we can't empathize with people we don't understand.
Yeah.
If we ourselves hadn't had our fall, how can we help those who have, right? And that's another thing that will disqualify you, actually.
Really?
If you're too perfect.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I tell you, again, I was not planning on being a deacon. I honestly didn't want to be a deacon, but I wasn't going to be disobedient to my priest. So I'm like, okay, no problem. When I go in there, I'm going to tell them all the bad things I've done in my life. And they're going to be like, oh, thank you for coming. I could go back to my pastor and say, hey, Father, I tried. You know,
is that what you were thinking?
That's exactly.
You were thinking, okay, this is my way out.
This is my way out. I'm gonna be 100% honest. You know, not gonna treat it like some job interview where you try to sell your good points. No, I'm gonna sell my bad points. And yeah, well, here I am.
And then at what point did you say, oh boy, they still want me?
Every year, I always thought to myself, okay, this is going to be the year they're going to be like, okay, Ray, thank you. It was literally in the whole 7 years, in my 5th year, that I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to happen. That's when you start hyperventilating. Like, oh my goodness.
You wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat.
Oh my gosh. This is going to happen. So yeah.
So going through that process and all that, was there a point where you said, okay, I don't think this is right for me? Should I?
Many times.
Like what are those points? What
points of, especially during sacrifices, when you're doing sacrifices, many times.
What was the most?
And I mean, for example,
difficult?
Yeah, of course. And these are sacrifices that I thought my wife, that she was going to be like, yeah, you're right. But no, just missing my kids' thing. See, one of the things that I didn't grow up with is my dad. And so when my children were born, I promised them that, right there, the day they were born, I promised them and God that I'm going to be there for every their first soccer game, their first, whatever, Dad's going to be there cheering away.
Yes.
And so, like, when your kid, like my youngest daughter, she's a dancer, in her first recital performance, I couldn't make it because I had to go to my Saturday class.
Wow.
And I'm like, I'm done, babe. No, I'm sorry. And she's like, no, we have to be there. Colette, my daughter, she'll understand. Things like that. Things like that. And
did your kids ever take any of it against you?
No, and that's why things like that is God's will, right? Because they know. It's funny because they're like, "Oh no, Dad," because I'm the one like afterwards, like with the 6 dozen red roses and a big teddy bear. Sorry, babe, I missed it. She's, "Oh no, Dad, it's okay. You were serving God."
Because we always, as fathers, we always want to do better than our parents.
Yes,
and we have that. We have a very high standard for ourselves sometimes, and I guess it's a blessing that we have kids that can understand that as well.
Understand and even forget. I mean, even in our lowest points, we all have them. We're human as parents when we make those decisions or say those things that you just dwell with them for many years. You're like, oh my gosh, and they've completely forgotten. And it reminds you of all the love you've given them. We're not perfect. We're not perfect at all, and so
speaking of being imperfect, so you were saying that there's some things that'll disqualify you to become a deacon.
Yeah.
So what if let's say a person does really have they lived a really bad life, but they did have, a rebirth.
Yeah.
They reformed their life with, I'm guessing, would that person still have a chance of becoming a deacon, or would it take a little longer?
Yeah, there's a degree on how far, I guess. And because one thing they push is all a deacon is really is a person who truly strives every day to live out their baptismal promises, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we do. So just because, does it mean I can't serve God's people? Of course we can, right? We just do it in different ways.
Okay.
Right? We do it. And again, that goes to the transparency of it, and that's to protect ourselves. Because those kind of things can come up in the past, and do we want to relive them ourselves?
Oh, that's
right.
True.
So again, it's to that certain degree, and that's what the formation team decides.
It's a long, complicated.
It is. It's above my pay grade. That's for sure.
So you've got that first year of discernment, then 2 years of classes. Then what comes after that?
Then if they accept you,
okay,
then you become a official student of University of St. Thomas School of Theology. Then you're a student. Then now we have professors who are teaching us, right?
So you and your wife.
Yeah, me and my wife. Yeah. Now my wife, she could either take it as for credit or audit. You mean just being there, right?
Okay.
But she's there, right? She's there.
So either way, she has to be there.
For the academic class, no.
Okay.
She don't. Okay. That's the one class a week I was telling you about, right?
Okay.
But the spirituality, which is the part that's what truly draws us in our mission, our ministry as deacon. She definitely has to be that, because that's where the spirituality comes from. That's where the bonding comes from.
Okay.
And all that. The Thursday classes are more academic, and so she doesn't have to be there. They highly recommend it, but it's not mandatory.
And through this whole process, they do the background check on your wife as well, I'm sure. And do they interview relatives as well?
I don't think they have. Now, see, the formation team has changed where they're getting a little bit more stricter on that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But with me, all they do is they come do home visits. They see how you live.
Okay.
Right? I know that. They do. They see how you live. But keep in mind, every year they're doing credit checks on you, auditing every year to the day you get ordained, right? So yeah. So I know, and it's I like it though. It was okay.
Hey, you found out about that purchase in 1994. That hospital.
Was a medical bill. I don't know. I know that is crazy.
Do you remember how much it was for?
$614.
600. Did you say that earlier? I
yeah,
remember. $614.
And I'm like, that's never came up in anything from buying my home to buying my cars.
Did the interest pile up on that or something? Or
I don't even know.
That's crazy. Okay, so after that, after the lessons, so the classes. How many years of classes did you say?
There'd be 4 years.
4 years of classes. Okay, so at this point, you got 4 years plus the 2 years plus the. So that's already 7 years in.
That's 7 years. That's all the 7 years.
Okay, so during
those 4 years, interesting things happen. Yeah.
So you said that around that point, that was like somewhere around there was the closest you came to calling it quits when you were missing
many times. Yeah, from that to working on humility. I will say that, Rudy, because you're so used to being married so many years. You taking orders from your wife, right? It just comes with it.
Yep.
But when you're having other people literally giving you orders, and at times even feel like you're being scolded, right? Which really more is just an attack on an inflated ego that the formation helps you bring down. But that was hard. Like, I don't got to take this,
Like what types of things? What types of orders?
Easy. When you get there, people are showing up late. Sometimes, and then the director gets up and starts screaming at all of you guys. Y'all should know better. Don't y'all know this thing is serious? And we're like, yes, we know it's serious. We got a million other things we could be doing, but we're here. We have families. We have lives. There's things happened that made us late, But all that, there's a reason behind all that. So yeah, you're like, I don't have to take this. I'm a grown man, I don't have to be scolded for being 5 minutes late,
It's sort of like Catholic Special Forces training,
Exactly.
You've got to put you through all the most intense
things.
It's
like, but I mean, obviously being on time is very important for a deacon.
Of course.
So I mean, you don't see this when you're in there, right? I mean, when they're telling you this, you don't see that until after you get the aha moments that, oh my gosh, this is why they did this. This is why they did that.
Were there other guys that you were with that dropped out?
Yes, and not only because of life. Because again, 7 years. I mean, how much our lives changed in 7 years, right? So yes, there was one of them. God bless him. His wife Sherry. She's a beautiful woman. She was struggling with cancer and she passed away. So you have things like that. You have family losses. You have jobs transfer. Not necessarily job losses because they try to work with everyone. You know? So dropping out has nothing to do with financial because they understand that's your calling and they're going to work with you on that kind of things. But yeah, just because of life changes. And I think maybe that's, at first you're wondering why the 7 years, why so long? But I think it's a beautiful opportunity to really allow the diaconate to be part of your life, right? Because the formation was like a child. I tell you right now, there were moments you were proud of it. There were moments you just stressed you out, right? And moments you're like, oh, why am I doing this? So it was like having another child. So
after those 4 years of classes, what happens next?
Well, that's when I get ordained. That's ordained.
Okay.
So the first year they call you, when you're in the classes, the first year you're just an aspirant, right? You're just nothing. Your second year, then you become a reader. So like here, me and Dennysse were brought up, and Father Dad gave us our lectionary book, and we become a reader. And then in the third year, you're a sacristan, And this was cool for me because the stuff I was already doing, right? So it's pretty neat.
Okay.
You become a sacristan and you learn how to prepare the mass, prepare the books. Your last year, kind of like with the priestly formation, their last year they're a deacon. Well, our last year we're acolytes, which I already had been an acolyte for many years, and so that was easy for me to do.
So how many years were you in Faustina before you became a deacon?
Well, I was with Faustina from the beginning, so that was 2013, 2014? I already forgot when we started this place. And then I just got ordained in 2019. So, yeah, I'm actually now you say the youngest, but I'm actually the only deacon, quote unquote, born here at St. Faustina, right? So, and we got many more coming after me, which is beautiful, right?
That's awesome.
Father always like, look, Ray, you're doing such a great job. You're moving people. You're inspiring. I said, no, they're probably thinking to themselves, well, heck, if Ray could do it, I could do it,
So how many do we have in the process right now?
So we have 2 coming in the 2023 class.
Okay.
So every 2 years they start another class, right?
Okay.
So we have 2 in the 2023 class, and then we have right now 5 in the 2025 class.
Okay.
So you could see so many things happen. I pray that all these guys one day become ordained deacons, but life happens. Going back to what you were saying earlier, when I started just the first 2 years, the first of the prerequisite, we were over 200.
Wow. And how many of those 200?
We ordained 40 to us.
Okay.
So again, things happen.
Of course, life happens.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you were a kid, did you ever think that one day I'd become a deacon?
No, I didn't even know what a deacon was,
What was so you grew up in San Antonio?
For my first 9 years, yes, I grew up in San Antonio, which was a beautiful blessing because I got to grow up with my grandparents. That helped a lot.
Are you from a military family?
No, I'm not from no military family. I do have some of my uncles were in the military, but no.
Okay, so San Antonio. What brought you to Houston?
My mom. We came over here to get a little bit, because when I say San Antonio, I mean in a very small city outside of San Antonio.
Okay.
So she came over here to the quote unquote big city, right? And so we came over here, and so yeah.
Okay, was it work that brought her?
Yeah, it was work that brought her over here.
So what was your childhood like as a Catholic? Are you a cradle Catholic? You were
cradle Catholic. My grandparents, my mom went on with the first 9 years. As you know, if you take any form of child development class, those are the sponge years. And so going to mass every day with my grandmother.
Okay.
Praying the rosary every day with my grandmother, and so that was big. That was big for me. And so it's my whole foundation, my whole faith is founded because of her. So yeah. No, I never thought that I would be a deacon. I always knew I'd be involved with the church and help out the church, which I've done.
So you were an altar boy and
yeah, I was definitely an altar boy over there, and so yeah, and so it was. I mean, it was a good experience because it made me comfortable around the altar.
Do you remember what parish?
Yeah, it's in a small town called Carson City, Texas, where I was born. It's St. Cornelius is the name of the parish.
And is your grandma still?
No, she's not with us anymore.
She's not with us anymore?
No.
But was she still alive to see you become a deacon?
No, unfortunately. I know. She was not alive for that. And
your grandfather?
Neither him. He wasn't there either. I always love it because I always say that my grandmother taught me the love of our faith, and my grandfather taught me the law of the faith. Let's put it that way. So, yeah.
Okay. How about your parents?
So, growing up, like I said, I grew up with a single mom.
Okay.
But one of the reasons why also my mom, we moved, I said earlier, for work, but it's also because she met someone.
Okay.
And so she had remarried, and so he adopted me. So that's why my last name is Croson, which is actually a German name.
Okay.
So he was German, and so he adopted me, and so he was a good blessing in helping me and raising me. So, I grew up here in the Bear Creek area, and so, when I came here, unfortunately, we would go to Sunday Mass, but I wasn't involved in the parish life as I was with my grandmother.
How old were you at that point when you moved? 9, did you say?
Yeah, I was about 9
years old?
Yeah.
And that was around the time that your mom got remarried?
Yeah.
And okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so we moved over here. And so yeah, we would go to St. Elizabeth Ancene Catholic Church, which is right there on kind of like on Highway 6 and
So your biological father was not in the picture at all, or
no, he wasn't. He is in my life now, and so I have a story on that too.
Oh, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Okay, so he wasn't
No,
at all at that
at
point.
all.
Okay, so that probably plays kind of into your wanting to be more part of your kids' lives
Exactly.
as a deacon.
Exactly.
You know, and missing that must have made it hurt even more, missing some of those.
It did. It really
your
did.
daughter's ballet recital,
And I was just waiting for my wife. I'm like, say, uncle, we get out of this, you know? And say, yeah. And there was many, but again, I have such wonderful children.
How was your stepfather?
He's a good guy.
Was he Catholic
really,
as well?
No, he's not a Catholic, which is one reason why we kind of strayed away from our faith.
Okay.
Right? But he's a good man.
So how old were you when you kind of strayed away?
From my faith would have to be when I got into high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't involved.
Not going to mass as often.
Not going to mass as often. Just too busy. You know,
all the excuses.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Just too busy with things.
Uh-huh.
But I was a good kid. I really was. So,
Did your grandma get on your case about?
She did, but again, she always showed me the love of our faith.
Of course,
right?
And that's what sticks with you.
Yeah, and that's exactly. So she just told me she would always tell me the graces that we get from going to masses. Never you need to go, right? Never you're sinning. None of that. No.
Were your grandparents still alive when you started the process of becoming a deacon?
I've never thought about that.
What year did they pass?
Yeah, it was 10 years ago. No, they weren't. They weren't. No.
Well, they know. They know.
I mean, yeah. Oh, of course. Oh, yeah. They were definitely there when I got ordained. I could feel them. That's for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so you moved here to Houston, and then you kind of strayed away from the faith. What brought you back? How old were you at that point? What point in your life?
Well, and there's several stages to bringing me back, right? The first one is that when me and my wife, we had our first child, Christian. Okay. We're like, I just knew, we got to get him baptized. I mean, my grandmother coming right back up to me, just like her teachings, right? And
whispering in your ear,
whispering in my ear. Hey, we need to get back. We got to baptize him. And so we did that, and we put him in CCE. But it was a little crazy because even at that time, me and my wife, which is another. I have so many stories. Wow.
Oh, go ahead.
Me and my wife, we were married civilly, so we were just married civilly at the time. Okay.
How old were you at this point?
I was 22 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, we had our first child. We got him baptized. We had him at 21. We had him baptized about a year later, which I was around 22. Mm-hmm. And so when he got into elementary, at that point, I wasn't going to church at all. Yeah, I was. I was a CEO. That's right. Christmas and Easter only. That's right. So we would go then. And then, when my kid got old enough to go into formation, we did that. See, I was doing, at this point, I had allowed the devil to blind me to thinking I'm a lost cause. But I don't want the same for my children, right? So we had him in formation and everything, and that's when he was around 9 years old. He was, after being receiving communion for a few years, and I guess when he was around 9, he's like, "Hey, Dad, why don't you and Mom receive communion?" Because I'm like,
So you were going to church but not receiving communion.
Yeah, and this is not all the time, right? We weren't going to church all the time. Again, back to the CEO thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I talked with my wife, and I said, I don't know. I mean, there's no way they're going to accept us back. We've already been married. We've been married outside the church, civilly for many years now. They're not going to accept. So we just dropped it. Then at 12 years old, it's all my firstborn son. At 12 years old, he becomes an altar server. And he starts bringing up the question again. Like, hey, what's, and we're like, wow, we've been married too long. But I'm like, you know what? I said, you know what, Dennysse, we're going to make an appointment. And I don't care what the priest tells us. We're not going to leave out of there without him saying he'll still accept us back, right?
Because it is scary. I mean, it is sort of embarrassing in a sort of a way that you haven't,
yes,
you weren't married in church and your kid is an altar server and everything. That must have taken a lot of courage to do that.
Yeah, I mean, my kid, he's a very good salesperson too, right? He's telling us, and and here you're thinking you're just a lost cause, and I realize that more than ever now, that misconception that many, I guess, lost Catholics, I would say, think that they're lost causes.
People who feel they're too far gone,
and there's no such thing. There's work involved. I'm not gonna lie, there's work, but there's no such thing, and that's what happened with me and Dennysse, and so when I made an appointment. They signed us up with a Deacon Art Chin Fat there at St. Bartholomew. And I me and my ignorance, I'm like, you see, babe, even the priest won't talk to us. He's giving us to some guy named Deacon. Again, I didn't even know at that time what deacons were, And it's a wonderful story, and we go in there, and he literally, which I know now, he literally does the marriage prep questionnaire with you, which he takes one person out of the room, and he's only speaking to one of you. And he's asking you all the questions that are on the marriage prep questionnaire, and then vice versa. And then so we get in there, and he calls us both into the room. He takes off his glasses. He puts his hand on his forehead, which is, I know now that that's just what he does. It's got nothing to do with anything.
But at the moment, you thought he's thinking.
I grabbed my wife's hand and I said, "This is the moment." And I gave her that look, like this is the moment where he's going to try to run us off, and we ain't going. And he goes, "Dennysse, Ray, both of you being here is a great blessing," and that was it. It just,
that's awesome.
The devil no longer had ties on me. I could see. I could actually see for the first time. I mean, such beautiful. And that's what started everything. So he told us, because we had been away from the faith so long, and he goes, I can't really put y'all through marriage prep. Y'all been married already at 12 years. So he put us in the RCA program to audit, right? Because we already had our sacraments.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. I was part of the RCA, I think, 10 years after that. I fell in love with it.
So your wife, Dennysse, is she a cradle Catholic as well?
She's a cradle Catholic as well.
How was her upbringing in the faith?
I think she was the same. I mean, her and my in-laws, they traveled a lot.
Okay.
So my dad is my father-in-law was in the oil and gas business. So he would travel a lot in South America. And so I think they would just go to church when they could. Right.
Is she from Texas as well?
She was born in New York, Long Island.
Okay. So, and then where'd you meet her?
At a movie theater here in Houston. At a movie theater. So one summer we were working, and I was with my best friend Frank, who I still talk to this day, and we were going into the movie theater. There was a $1 movie theater off of Highway 6 and Clay Road, and there she was working in the ticket booth at nighttime. Back in the day, that's when the spiral perm was real popular. And I said, Frank, look, that's going to be the girl I marry.
You said that.
I said that, and she to this day doesn't believe it, but it's absolutely true. I'm right here looking at Jesus himself, and he could testify it's absolutely true. And so I did everything and anything to get her attention, and so... yeah, here we are.
How old were you at this point? You were in high school?
No, at that point, I was already graduated high school.
Okay.
Going into college. And so I was 19. Yeah.
Okay.
I was 19.
Is that movie theater still open?
No, it's there. The physical place is there, but I think they turned it into some daycare. I don't know what they turned it into, but it turned into something.
Do you ever go back?
We used to, right? I used to do the sentimental thing and go back with her. But, and I hate to say that, we started, when we started having more kids, we just got away from it, I guess. We have other sentimental value places now.
Of course.
Yeah.
Over the years, a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
So you decide that you're meeting with this deacon.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, it's great that you guys are here. You go through RCIA,
Mm-hmm.
and then what happens next?
I just, again, I was given a second chance. So during that time of RCIA, the one thing he says is that we have to marry you guys, right? We need to get you back in communion with the church.
Yes.
So, and this is a beautiful thing because this was probably during the summertime. And so he wanted to marry us in October. And I'm like, okay. He goes, but in the meantime, you have to live as brother and sister. It was like 6 weeks actually before that. And go to confession.
Okay.
So it was beautiful living as brother and sister because all that man was that I would take turns sleeping with my children, and so every night it's like you bond with your children, right? So before you go into bed, we're talking about things.
So brother and sister meeting in separate rooms,
just literally like that. And so that's what we did. We went to confession, and then on October 13th, we had our marriage convalidated.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What year was that?
That was going to be 2008.
Do you think the reason why you didn't receive communion was because you felt like because you hadn't been married in the church?
That's exactly why.
Was it subconsciously or consciously?
Just both, I would say.
Okay.
It was both because this is the way I was raised,
Mm-hmm.
We definitely have to be very aware of your very aware of yourself when you're receiving the body and blood of Christ, right? Make sure that you are in the good graces of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was very raised with that. And so
it's awesome that your son was, pulling you towards that, asking you to do that.
He brings that up all the time now too.
He does.
Yeah.
Does he say, "Look at you now, huh, Dad? You're a deacon and everything."
And sometimes I even pick on him too because there'd be sometimes I'll tell him, "Hey, I need you to come," because he's 26 now, and so believe me, he has my blood. I know when I was 26, and so I'm like, "Hey, don't forget, make sure you go to mass, right?" Okay, Dad. Okay. Hey, you started all this a long time ago, so don't want to blame on yourself. So
how many kids do you have?
6.
We have six.
Yeah, we have 6
okay,
children.
so the oldest is 26.
26.
And the youngest is?
The youngest is 8.
8. Okay.
Yeah.
So are they pretty spread out, or do you have 2 batches?
We have 2 batches.
Okay.
So yeah, we have our 26 and then our 23 and our 21. These are the children we had while we were married civilly.
Okay.
And so my wife had her tubes tied. And so when we came back with the church and everything, we wanted to have more children. We knew that was the blessing. And so we talked to Father about it, and he's like, "Well, y'all have 3 kids. You're okay. Don't worry." I'm like, "Well, Father, she had her tubes tied. We didn't know, and she's already confessed. She's okay, but we still wanted more children."
Okay.
And so we prayed on it, and my wife, she just, she was the brave one.
How did you make that decision to have her tubes tied?
Well,
was it a financial thing? Was it
more of an ignorance thing because of our age?
Okay.
Nowadays they push that big, right? As soon as you have your child, they're already asking you. Even like with our younger 3, which I'll get to in a minute, they'll ask you. Because they'll look, after we had Kaylee, our 3rd one, they're like, "Oh, you've had 3, or you're so young, you had 3, you should have enough." The doctor's like, "You should have your tubes tied." Well, we didn't know. We didn't know. So we said yes. And so we thought that she not only had them tied, but clipped or burned. I don't know what the terminology is. And so it's like, well, and so we were going to have more children, Rudy. We were either, if she could untie them, it was possible. If not, we were going to adopt.
Okay.
We wanted to have more children. But no, she was able to untie her tubes. And I always tease people because, again, there's those are back to back. So, and I always tease people. I was like, hey, I always tell people, hey, you never notice how when you open up your closet just to get one thing out of it, and all these things start falling out. That's how I felt like with our children.
This is the floodgates open.
This is the floodgates. Yeah, the doctor who untied her tubes actually put our kids for the longest time on his website because we were like his big success story,
That's awesome.
So
did you have? So you had your tubes tied after you
We had my
You got
third
married
child.
in church?
No.
So
this
this
was
was
before.
before. Okay.
All this was before. This is after we had our third child.
Okay.
So just to catch you up, by
I
the
mean,
time,
untied. I mean,
yeah.
When you
untied. Oh, yes. After we already had been married to the church and everything, we want to have more children.
Uh-huh.
I was involved in a lot of ministries at the time. I'm like, we want to have more children.
So her having her tubes tied, that was not a reason for you not to have, to be married in the church. Was that some sort of obstacle? Is that something that?
No. That has nothing to do because all that happens before, even after. That's the wonderful thing with the sacrament of reconciliation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's even after. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
God forgives us of all of our sins, and once He forgives them once, they're no longer your own. Oh. There's no need to continue.
Did that ever come up in the background check with the?
Yes.
Yes.
How did that comes up in the background check? Why and the story and?
Did they sit you down and talk to you all? They
talked to it, and I'm like, yeah, you see, she had her tubes tied. I guess that's it for us, right? I'm going back to that.
That was one of your outs. I was like, you were counting on.
Yeah, that was my car. They're like, no, and obviously they're like, oh, how wonderful both of you could minister people who've done that, and they show regret afterwards, and how wonderful that would be for you guys. And so I'm like, well,
you sit back and you go, darn,
throw that one away. That one down in the trash.
That was your trump card. You were like,
I had plenty of them. No. But yeah, I mean, it's they liked our story, and so.
What are your other trump cards that you were?
I mean, so with that, getting into the program. So going back to that, when I told you after the first 2 years, you're either outright denied, yes, or postponed.
Okay.
And so, and this relates to what we're just talking about, how we untubes tied, right? Because after I got untubes tied, we were pregnant with Colette, which was our fourth child.
Okay.
And that happens to be around the same time Father asked me about, I was already in the formation actually at that time, the prereq. So they postponed me.
Oh, they did?
Got postponed.
Okay.
And that's the most biggest blessing ever.
Really?
And, yeah.
Why is that?
So they postponed me because once we went into the formation at the first 2 years, we were pregnant with Colette. By the time we got to that point, we were already pregnant. She was pregnant with her sixth child. So I remember I told you back to back about them three. And they're like, listen, we're going to postpone you because the cardinal feels that you have young children.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, isn't that what we're supposed to do as Catholics? So let me get this straight. I'm being punished because I'm having children, which is what we're called to do, right? It's literally one of the two rules of matrimony, right? Is to, and so that's why.
And what they say?
They were
so this was the cardinal that talked.
Yeah, this was the cardinal talking to the directors who were sitting there to know. So I was very upset. I really was.
Oh, really?
I was very upset because I'm like, I did nothing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, here this whole time you're preaching to us about wanting young deacons, but understand young deacons come with children.
And how many years are you into the process at this point?
Well, that's after those 2 years. Remember those 2 years? And then they ask if you go into it?
Yes.
So I already had done those 2 years of schooling, and so...
So you'd invested that much time already. So So the 1 year of discernment, then the 2 years of...
Yeah, so it's 3 years. And so the good thing, one of the good things I didn't do is when I don't agree with people, I keep my mouth shut, which is good. Because I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, take these 2 years off, raise your children. We'll come do a home visit and see how you're doing. And then we'll see, if we can get you back in a couple of years. I'm like, okay. But as soon as I walked out, I looked at Dennysse and said, I'm done with this. I'm done. I'm going to continue back doing my ministries that I like. I'm going to continue back serving Jesus, right? And doing all that, right? And so it was gone. It was out of my mind. Really, if they would have called me, I would have been like, no, thank you so much, but I decided not to do this no more. So I'm back in my ministries, and then all of a sudden, Father John tells me, hey, because Father John Call, he was my spiritual director, not only my pastor, but when I started my business, he walked me through it. So I've known him for many, many years, and so he walked with me in starting something from nothing, right? And so he says, hey, I want you to meet someone, he tells me. And so I'm like, okay, all right. And so he goes, He goes, I'm not going to be there, but he'll be there. So I go into one of the offices there at St. Bartholomew, and there's Father Dad sitting there. And we just started having a long conversation about St. Faustina, right? And I knew this was going to happen because I've lived in this area for a while. My business used to be in Brookshire, so I always go to the back way here. And I used to always tell Dennysse, hey, one day, if they open a Catholic church over here, we're gonna start attending it, right?
Yeah, because it was, before St. Faustina, it was just this big open area where there was really no Catholic church nearby.
No, just 1093, and I would take it to go in the back way into Brookshire. And so I'm like, okay. And so again, being part of so many ministries at St. Bartholomew, I was a certified catechist, so I would teach confirmation. So there we were at confirmation, and the cardinal is there, and he goes, I just finished confirming over 200 at Epiphany. Here I'm confirming 2 more hundred. That's why we're going to open up a church in St. Faustina. And I'm like, all those conversations I had with Dennysse about we're going to come over here. I'm like, oh. God, I don't want to leave St. Bart's, That
must have been really tough.
It was very, very tough.
How many years were you at St. Bart?
All my life.
Oh, so since you moved at the age of 9, you've been at St. Bart.
Yes, I was attending there when what they have, the old parish hall now, used to be the parish church.
Okay. So from the age of 9, so this is where like your kids were all baptized there?
They were all baptized there. All my first 3 got all the sacraments there. My first 3 children, all the sacraments. All of my children were baptized there.
So how hard was it to move?
It was very.
Did you say no at a certain point?
It was very hard. But I think one of the reasons why I moved because our pastor was leaving. So we come up with all reasons why we do things, but in the end, it's the Holy Spirit moving us, right? And then Father Dad, you know how he is. He's just so dynamic. He told me that with my experience, that Father John thought it'd be a good idea, and I'm like, and I didn't want to.
That's a perfect word to use for Father Dad. Dynamic.
Yeah, he is very dynamic.
Very dynamic. Yes.
And so I'm like, well, I didn't want to at first. I really didn't because I like St. Bart's in my home.
So were you and Father Dad the first ones to know about St. Faustina?
It was a few of us. There was probably a handful of us who first knew about a church being here.
Okay.
Not necessarily St. Faustina.
Yes.
The name hasn't even been brought up yet at this point, but yeah.
So it was Father Dad, you, and a few other people.
There's a few other of us. Started around 4 of us, and then it ended up being around 11, and we were called we were like a leadership team.
Okay. How did these people get chosen?
Some of them I had picked because I just knew.
Okay.
And some of them Father had picked because he knew.
Okay.
And so these were people who were very involved in their field, I guess you want to say. But all of us, though we were involved in our field, we're not experts in our field. We're all new at all of this.
So did you and Father Dad know each other before this point?
Never met him.
So
when
you
I
just meet each other and boom, you guys are going to start a parish together.
We're going to start, Archdiocese want to do a parish over here, and he wanted my help.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did that feel, finding out you've got this big task of starting a new parish?
Well, I think that one of the things is you take a lot of things for granted, right? I mean, I knew how to prepare for Mass. I knew everything required for Mass. But how do you prepare for Mass when there's not a place, there's not a table, there's not an altar, So, I was very involved in the liturgy part at St. Bart's, which is why I think Father John thought I could help Father Dad out on that, you know? And just recruiting people and everything, the whole logistics of it all, right? From my business negotiating skills when we negotiated the rent where we had the office before.
Okay.
Yeah, all that. So
all of that was from scratch.
From scratch, everything from scratch.
Wow.
And then when we had our first Mass, just literally going around on my pickup truck from different churches, asking them, hey, can y'all give us a bottle of wine to do Mass, some hosts to do Mass?
Because it's an entirely different thing being asked to move to another parish that's already established as compared to going to one that doesn't even exist yet.
Exactly.
And so St. Faustina, when it started with 0.
Yeah.
With nothing.
Nothing.
So what was the first step of getting everything together?
Well, the first step is advertising it. Right,
Okay.
we're going to start a church. So Father would go to different parishes.
The town halls, I remember those.
The town halls. Yeah. He would preach. He would preach, and then we would be at the town halls right afterward masses, and so we'd be there answering questions, asking for advice as far as the name. Remember, the name was one of the things that come around, and so yeah, it was. Gosh, it was so much work.
I'm sure that's when you guys started doing the town halls. That's when all the volunteers started to flood in.
All the volunteers, and you got to sort them out. And see,
just organizing all the people.
Yeah, it was, and it was such a fluid situation where everything was changing, right? And because you're learning. I mean, father's having to change. Let's do this idea. No, let's do this idea. And he's, I'm sorry, guys, I'm changing. I'm like, we get it. So none of us have done this.
You said that you went like door to door to the other parishes, pretty much.
I think the most helpful we got was Father Eric at Immaculate Conception Church in Sealy. He literally gave us our first altar.
That tiny altar.
That tiny altar. And so we just made a tabletop to make it bigger. The amble he had given us. He gave us a bunch of our ciborias, our chalices, our host. He was giving us the administrator. Their administrator had to come in and be like, Father, you can't give them all that. We still use some of those.
Do we still have?
Yes, we still have all those. Yeah, they're in the storage.
And that tiny altar too?
Yeah, tiny altar.
I love that altar because I'll never forget that altar because I think it was the first mass that the cardinal said at the school with us. He said, I've been all around this archdiocese and all around the country, and I've never seen an altar that small. And Father Nat, without missing a beat, says, that's my size right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll never forget that altar, that tiny altar.
He still has it in his it's in the rectory. So yeah,
awesome.
So we have all that stuff, and
so you're pretty much begging to all the neighboring parishes.
Yeah, for
materials.
Yeah, for anything, and and then when you collect, we rented a big storage.
Okay,
so we could put everything in there and literally say, okay, this is what we have. So you got to lay everything out and say, okay, what else are we going to need to have mass? Because that's the ultimate goal, Eucharist celebration.
Yes,
and so some of those chalices were, if you go the normal route, they're expensive, very expensive, and we didn't have that kind of money. So like the first chalices that I had, that we bought new ones. I bought them through eBay International. I think it came straight from India because very big on gold there, and so I was able to get good deals on some of the smaller ones that we had, and you're just having to use other resources.
So how much money did Faustina start off with? Was it all donations? Did the archdiocese give a certain amount in the beginning, or was it a loan?
Yeah, it's all of it's a loan.
Okay, so whatever you spend, you got to pay it back.
Yeah, it's from the archdiocese, right? So yeah, all of it's a loan, and so obviously the first thing was the school. That's where we started having the masses at. So having to pay for renting that out. A lot of it's donations from the U-Haul truck every weekend to the storage where we kept everything. All that was donated by parishioners. And
how was it decided upon to hear mass at Hubenek Elementary?
That was what was available around here. That was the only school that was available around here who allowed us at time slots, right? So that was it was just availability. So we knew that the church was going to be here.
And I recall in one of Cardinal's homilies at the school, he said that Joe Hubenek was a Catholic. Did you all know that?
I didn't know. I didn't know that.
And that he was really heavily involved in the church.
No, I didn't know that. Oh, wow, that's new. That's new news to me. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did not know that.
I recall him saying that at one of the masses that he heard at the school.
That goes back to the Holy Spirit working His magic, right? Yeah. So
imagine the blessing of having a school named after you and a parish starting out in that school that's named after you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. So how many years were we at the school? 2? Was it 2 or 3 years? Or maybe might have been even longer.
I know. I think it was longer. We started there, I think, in 2014. 4 years, I think. It's such a blur to me now, Rudy, with so many changes, It really is.
How tough was it starting everything out, I mean, we all know that, okay, first of all, you're at a school.
Yeah.
So everything has to be set up and broken down completely. All the chairs, all the rows, the sound system, everything has to be set up before Saturday evening mass, and then broken down after the last Sunday mass. That was something that had to be done every week.
Every weekend it was, and it's so. I mean, again, it went so fast, but you literally, my weekends were. That's what I did, right? Every weekend. So until we built up teams, but it was a lot. I think it was more physical though, because we developed so much fellowship doing that. You know, you really do, because you're celebrating mass, that last Sunday mass, and then you're hurrying up to the restroom to change out of your Sunday clothes and throw on your shorts and t-shirt because you got to break everything down and. And then go put it in a U-Haul, and then after that we got a trailer, which was awesome because no longer unloading it into a storage bin, so that was nice. And I think it just I always remember that first mass we had there, right? That first mass is just it's all your hard work and making the impossible possible, because it's not like we had a manual to go by.
It's exciting starting a new parish.
It is.
It's walking into it knowing that every decision that you make will probably have long-lasting repercussions. Like you're starting the whole culture of this parish. Everything that so when Father Dat started, what did he tell you? What vision did he say he had for?
And you mentioned it as culture. I think right off the bat, he was going to make sure that we were one culture. We weren't separated. There was not going to be no such thing as just Hispanic ministries and then English ministry. We're all one people, and he's kept that. And he goes, I remember him saying, we're in a very unique position to do that here. It's hard to do that at existing parishes.
Yes.
To retrofit it, convert it. But we have a chance here, which is why he always watched our words. We don't say Spanish Mass. We say Mass in Spanish.
Ooh.
And you think that that has a big impact, because it has an impact on your mentality, how you're looking at it, right?
I'm going to remember that.
Yeah. It's
Mass in Spanish.
Mass in Spanish, what he says. He did not like to say Spanish Mass, because there's only one Mass. It just happens to be in Spanish. And so if you notice, we do many bilingual events here.
Yes.
And it's worked. I could tell you by experience it's worked. I think because we see a lot of our Spanish-speaking parishioners who are not shy or to get involved in things, right? Because that's always a barrier. It's language, right? I would help. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no such thing here at St. Faustina.
Do you ever get any pushback from the non-Spanish speaking population?
No, I haven't. Now, Father, who knows? But I know I haven't as far as that now. And it's because of the culture, right? We have a good culture here, and so that's why we try to keep it.
Did you have any experience like that in St. Bart's, trying to, like you say, retrofit?
Yeah, it just didn't work. It's really
tough because
didn't.
People are set in their ways.
They're set in their ways.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we'll do the Spanish thing and then we'll do the English thing, right? There's no need to do it together. So yeah, and I mean, because of that, I even suffered, because English is my first language, so I rarely got involved in the Hispanic ministry.
Okay.
And I mean,
do you speak Spanish?
Yeah, I speak Spanish.
As a child?
No. I actually learned more as an adult.
Okay.
So every year they had this big music for life festival in Spanish.
Okay.
And I went. I went 2 years in a row, and I would see people at St. Bart's there, and they would tell me in Spanish, like, we never see you. You never came to these when you were at St. Bart's or anything. And, why are you coming now? Well, it's because the culture. I don't think I tell them that, but it's true. The culture here, you get involved with anybody. And so I was invited here, and I went, and so it was nice.
How old were you when you learned to speak Spanish?
So growing up, I did, with my grandmother, I did learn Spanish. But then
your grandmother speaks Spanish?
Yeah, she spoke Spanish. So, but I lost that when we moved up here to Houston. So my mom, she's bilingual too, but you'll notice that when the family is bilingual, English is only spoken. It is. At least that's the way it is with us Hispanics. And so I lost it. And then I got by trade. I'm a first class machinist. I worked a lot. I worked a lot with a lot of Hispanics in my 20s, so I started learning Spanish.
Okay.
Conversational Spanish. When I got into the formation, I knew that I was going to need to learn more formal Spanish, which I started taking my own classes on the side.
So you said, okay, I'm a deacon.
If I become a deacon, I know they're going to put me in Spanish ministry.
Yes.
I need to be ready, and so, and I mean, to this day, I'm still learning. I really am. I mean, just past weekend, I preached at the Spanish Mass, and I did it all from memory, which is good.
That's awesome.
Like if I'm speaking English, and because a lot of it is just getting past your own pride, like your embarrassment. Embarrassment is just another level, another element of pride.
It's tougher when you're older too.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, my parents are from the Philippines and they speak Filipino, and I'm just like you. Growing up, it was all English, like you said. It's just English at home.
Yeah.
And then later on, I was lucky enough to learn it, but it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Very difficult to pick it up, but it's so advantageous being able to speak another language.
Well, for me, because I want to be able to serve our Spanish speaking parishioners, and so that's why I think that's one of the main reasons why I went when I preached. I had my notes, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that, because especially recently during these hard times, I've been walking closely with many Spanish speaking people in our community, and so I'm like, Ray, you're worrying yourself about prideful things. And people have more important matters to deal with, Go up there and just talk with him. And that's what I just did this past Sunday. I just when I was up there in the sanctuary, I just talked with him. So, yeah.
Did you ever have any experiences when you didn't know how to speak Spanish? People come up to you and try to
all the time.
How does that feel?
I mean, I wasn't. I just felt bad. I wasn't embarrassed, but I just felt bad. I've always felt bad that I couldn't communicate with him.
Yes.
Because that's what I felt bad for. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't.
Did your grandmother ever get on your case for not learning how to speak Spanish?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I said I knew it with her. I knew it growing up. I just lost it. I had lost it, and so. But yeah, I nowadays I read things. I'm always reading anything Spanish. I'll start to read because it's just practice. Does
your wife speak Spanish?
Very well. Yeah, I know.
Okay. She comes from a Spanish-speaking family?
See, so the way it works in our generation, if you're bilingual, it's because your parents only speak Spanish and you learn English at school and being around, right? I'm telling you, that's the way it is. And that's what my wife is. That's why she's bilingual. Because if your parents are bilingual, you're only speaking English. That's just the way it is. So,
that's the way it is with our kids.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm almost there to where I feel like I'll be able to teach my younger three at least. And I'll start teaching my adult children, but I do want my younger kids to learn.
It's a lot of effort teaching your kids when you live in a bilingual household. I remember meeting somebody at Epiphany once. Every single thing she said to her kids, she said it both in English and in Spanish.
Yeah.
And looking at her, I'm like, that's a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Having to say every single word, every sentence.
Yeah.
In both languages. So trying to, make your kids bilingual when at school it's all English. So
I would think it would be best just for her to talk to them in Spanish because they're going to learn English. They're going to learn the English no matter what. So
that's it. That's your recommendation to.
Yeah, that's my recommendation. Speak to them in Spanish. They'll learn their English in school. All right.
I wonder what would happen if I went. My son's 16, so if I go home and just only speak to him in Filipino, I don't know.
I really started doing that with my kids in a way, kind of like the bilingual you're talking about, but just an identification of things, not necessarily sentences, but just what this is.
Just nouns.
Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So
just like kind of just sliding it in there.
Just sliding it in there before I just completely transition to Spanish to help my own cause, right? Just to help myself too.
True. Yeah. The more you use it, the better you get at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes you develop accents, and I'm always I know I have friends who speak both, who grow up speaking both, but they have an accent, and I mean sometimes it matters.
Your older kids, the first batch of kids, do they speak any?
They understand Spanish.
They understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And So now you've got 2 batches of kids.
Yeah.
Okay. How different is the first batch that you raised? Like, because your son,
Yeah.
he was
Yeah,
a
exactly.
90s kid.
Yeah, exactly.
And then this batch right now, you said 8 years old
Yeah,
is your...
so yeah, because you're going from Generation Y to Generation Z.
Yes.
That's what it is. And so, yeah. And so, like, I just, one of the things with these Generation Z kids eating the detergents and everything, and our older kids get so mad. They're like, okay, I know we're millennials, and I know we're entitled and we're lazy, but we're not stupid, okay? And I hate them, I hate them giving that crediting it to us. But it's not us. We don't do that kind of stuff.
Because I mean, it's very different. Your first batch of kids, you didn't have all the cell phones.
Yeah, I did have a lot of things.
But this batch, I mean, the kids are growing up with the cell phones.
They're exactly right. And so, I think my older kids are always quick to tell us how we've improved in our parenting skills, and I'm like, well, I would think naturally that should happen. I mean, we're more patient now. And you're like, oh my gosh. They're always like, oh, if we would have said that to you, we would have got the slap across the face. We would have never got to sit down and talking. They always do cracks like that. They're like, man, God, we were just born too early, And I'm like, well, yeah, it's because I was a child having children with you guys, and we didn't have time.
You were in your early 20s when you had your son.
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't crazy young, but you were still young.
Yeah. And I was at that time because, I, again, wanting to give them a life I didn't have.
Of course.
And so I was working. I always had 2 jobs, always, sometimes 3 jobs.
Really?
Yeah. Just to give, again, give them that life that I didn't have, and just being the provider, right? Just I'm there for the provider part. So, yeah. And sometimes when we focus too much on one aspect of our role, no matter what it is, we kind of lose a little bit of the other. And so, and that happened with me, especially with my older son. I'm always working. Always working, trying to give him, never being there to have those talks. I would have the talks with them, but I don't know. Maybe it's me, Rudy, but now being a father now to my younger 3, it's kind of like it's highlighting my faults, as a father to my older 3, right? And going back to what I mentioned earlier in the interview, as far as, and they're like, Dad, my older kids are like, what are you talking about? We don't remember that, but I do. As parents, we remember
those things stick with you.
They stick with you, yeah. And so
what is like the one major thing that you'd say was very different with your first batch and your second batch of kids?
Well, for example, with my boys, we're men don't cry, doing that, that's the biggest one, obvious. Which I accept that with my younger boys, right? So. That's one of the things. And just, I guess, be more understanding, be more opening to what they think, their thoughts, compared to I'm the parent, you're the child, you do what I say.
Yeah, because that's the way we were raised.
That's the way we were raised.
We were raised, you follow,
exactly.
you don't question anything at all. You don't have to know why.
Exactly. So these younger kids, they want to know why.
Yep.
And me and my wife will sit there and we'll discuss with them. And that's when the older kids are like, man, if we would have said why. And I'm like, okay, I get it.
What is your biggest regret with the first batch compared,
With the first kids, is not really being there. I always said that I was there for their important things. But not being there for the everyday things. And simply because I was always working, trying to provide. Right. And that happened when, I'd be working 3 jobs, and then I'd come home, and then we'd go to a movie, and I'd probably be sleeping in the movie. Right. And then that when my wife had brought that to my attention once, we got less jobs. I got less jobs, but we started, and that's how the soccer developed too. We would go on picnics because picnic is a lot cheaper than a movie. And started having that really quality time with them, right? So not meaning, again, I'm just learning how to be a dad, right? I looked at the what do you call that? I guess the physical part, the material part of providing. and not being there really for them for the everyday things.
Well, because that's the way our parents were. Our parents were, this is how we show our love, by providing for you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. This is how we showed our love, and that's what I was trying to do. And so, but no, these kids nowadays, they want that too. Don't get me wrong. They want the material, but yeah, being there for them, being always there for them, trying to be for every practice and stuff like that.
Is there a lot of pressure in any way being a deacon now as a father? Like, well, you're a deacon, you have to act this way now as a father, or has it changed the way you parent or the way you think about things?
I think that came. It should, and I know it's conscious, right, on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, again, when I had my younger three, I think already being so involved in in parish life, being involved in my faith, made me a better father. Right, I think the diaconate just confirms that. Yeah, because again, like my older kids were saying, "Man, you're so much more patient," than I was then. And that wisdom that comes with age, but most of that came with just being more involved in my faith.
How has that affected your relationship with your parents?
So, with my mom, she brags about me all the time.
Of course,
right, and so she's no longer with my adopted father, and so she's no longer with him, and so I still talk with him, not as much as I should. But that's there's no fault in there either way, right? He went off and he had another family, and so he's doing his thing. So it's not like there's no animosity there, anything like that. We just we have our family, our lives. But my mom is very proud, of course, and so brags about me all the time. Sometimes she calls me deacon. I'm like, Mom, don't call. I'm your son.
How does that work? Because I always wonder with priests, but with a deacon, how does that?
So this St. Faustina is my home.
Yes.
All right. So I'm pretty sure. So let's put a good example. And Father Dat's even mentioned it in one of his homilies. When he goes to his house, he's just that, right? He gets there. No one's saying, "Oh, Father, hey, welcome, come sit." No, he gets there. His mom's telling him, "Hey, dishes, you gotta eat." So that's how I like here. I know that a lot of our sisters and brothers here, they'll say, "Hey, Ray, I'm a deacon." I'm like, no, I like it when you just call me Ray, because we're family here. And that's why when I preach, I always start off by saying, good morning or good afternoon to my family, because this is my family here. I literally went from the pew to the altar here. And so, I like the me when type thing, right? Because I could be casual here, right? I could be myself here. One day, if I get moved to another parish, there I know it's going to be just Deacon Ray. That's all they're going to know me as, right?
Oh, yes, because you're coming in as a deacon.
As a deacon, so
is your mom still at St. Bart?
No, my mom, she moved back to our small town we're from.
Okay.
So she had moved back after her and my dad split up. She moved back to her small town, so that's where she's at, retired.
And she's going to that parish.
Yeah, she's going to that parish.
That's awesome. How often do you get back there?
As much as I can. I served there a couple of times already because my mom wanted me to, but even that I have to get permission. I have I always got to get permission. I said, "Mom, I just can't just show up there and then you say, hey, go serve." No, I got the permission.
How does that work? Who talks to who?
I send it's called a letter of suitability.
Oh, really? There's paperwork.
It's paperwork.
Oh, it's not just a phone call.
No, not a phone call. My bishop, our bishop here, which is the auxiliary bishop, which is Bishop Schultz.
Okay.
But he gets the paperwork through my director, our deacon director, and he's got to send a letter of suitability saying that Deacon Rey Croson is a good standing deacon to their bishop.
Okay.
And then their bishop sends an approval letter to the pastor of the church.
And then you can serve.
Then I can serve.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it's good. It needs to be like that.
Of course.
Because you got to know who I am. You just because I'm wearing a deacon shirt, you don't want me up there preaching away and be like, "Wait, what is he preaching? What?"
So that is a deacon shirt.
This is a deacon shirt. That's they call that the stove, the deacon stove. So anytime you see this emblem, That's a deacon shirt. And so,
Do you have like an ID card as well as a deacon?
yeah, believe it or not, I do.
You do?
Yeah, and those are mainly used. Well, it's an ID card. It's on a laminate, so but it's got a little scan thing. So when I go into prisons or hospitals,
Okay.
so they know I'm
that
there.
you are.
Yeah.
Also, this is like tied in with the government as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because the government in Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston, we have approval to go into prisons as well as hospitals, and this is obviously helpful during outside visiting hours.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, so going back to your parents, so we touched up on your biological father.
Yeah.
So you said that he just gotten in touch with him recently.
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
How did that start? How did he? Okay, so he and your mom, things didn't work out.
Yeah, they didn't. It didn't work out. They were both very young.
Were they married or
They were married through the church and everything.
Okay.
So, yeah. They're both very young. My mom had me when she was 16.
Oh wow.
An idea.
Okay.
And then 3 years later, they had my sister Dennysse, and I think that's when I don't know my father-in-law, my dad. He said he had a nervous breakdown, and that ended that, right? And we've talked. He reached out to me once in my 20s, and I didn't want nothing to do with him. I just didn't. I was in my 20s,
Yes. You were all. It was all about you.
Yes, exactly. Everything's black and white at that time. It's wrong or right. That's it, right? Gosh, believe me, I have 3 of them, and I know when I hear them speak. When I hear them speak in judgmental ways, I just look in the mirror and be like, "That's your fault."
They're all in their 20s.
My 3 older ones, yeah. So they're very judgmental, and who isn't in their 20s, right?
Exactly.
And so going through the program, something was missing. Something kept holding me back. And the last semester before I got ordained, I already knew I had to make peace with my father. I just knew. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But I knew there was no way that I could serve. I could allow myself to be ordained a deacon and serve our sisters and brothers here with that.
Did your wife say anything? Did she plant the seed, or was it just something in the back of your head the entire time?
This was definitely the Holy Spirit who was pushing me, because I can't preach on forgiveness if I can't do this.
Mm.
And so I was like, okay. So I called him, and then the first words out of my mouth was, I asked him for forgiveness.
Oh, really?
For taking so long to reach out to him.
Because he had already tried to reach out to you previously.
Yeah. And after that, it was beautiful. And it helped me realize that just apologize. Who cares who's wrong in any situation? I mean, today's reading was on that. Where Jesus tells Peter to forgive 77 times. Not 7 times, but 77 times. So, which is an infinity. And so it's been beautiful ever since. And so when I was laying down, I had myself prostrated there at the Co-Cathedral downtown, I knew I was ready. I've done everything the Holy Spirit asked me to do, and our relationship has grown a lot since then.
Did your father remarry?
Oh yeah, he's been remarried for some time now.
How many? Does he have kids?
He has 2 boys. Yeah, he has 2 boys.
How much younger are they?
They're in their 30s, so yeah, they're around 10. I'm 47, so they're probably around a good 15 years.
Okay.
But he, I mean, he's been given. My father's been given a second chance, and he takes advantage of it. Every morning he texts me.
What's your relationship like with your half siblings?
I haven't met them yet, believe it or not. Yeah, I haven't met them yet. Not because I haven't wanted to. It's just I wanted to meet him first. So he actually came down here in February, right before all this whole thing really kicked off, this coronavirus stuff, right? So he came down here in February, and so he stayed with me for about a good 2 weeks. It was really nice. And so
this is fairly recent, just a few months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I've only been ordained just over a year.
Okay.
So when I first had that first conversation with him, we were talking, and so that's when we were at a point to where he wanted to come see me, and so he came. So yeah, all this It's fairly recent. So
That's awesome that you're able to reconnect with him.
yeah, it is. It just got such a weight lifted off me. It really is. And yeah, I'm just.
Was he surprised to find out that you had become a deacon?
Yeah. Well, when I first contacted him, I told him the reason why I was reaching out to him. I said, listen, I told him, I was very honest. I said, the Holy Spirit is calling me to forgive you. And to ask for forgiveness, I told him. So I told him what I was doing. And that, because one thing I'm not, I try my hardest not to be a hypocrite, right? I mean, I can't, this had to be taken care of. So if I'm able to help others, right? And it's helped me grow a lot spiritually. And I see things so different because I look at the beauty that came from it, right? Whether I apologize first or second, it didn't matter. It was done. A dad can have a relationship with his son. Grandchildren can have a relationship with their grandfather.
Yes.
So
that's awesome that he's back in your life now.
Yeah, my wife loved him. That's why he's very charismatic. I guess that's where I get my charisma from. So my wife loved him. So yeah.
How's your mom with you two reconnecting?
She's fine.
Very supportive.
Yeah, she's very supportive. So she it's been a long time. So yeah.
Okay. So there's no bad blood or anything?
Oh no, there's no bad blood between them. If there was, I'm sure it's gone now because their son is a deacon, right? So it is fun though. I'm gonna tell you, Rudy, it is fun sometimes having conversations with your parents or even loved ones. Because they'll say things and you're just like, okay. Because you're just like, no, we can't be like that. I don't say that with my mom or my dad. You always give them that respect, but
of course. So you find yourself biting your tongue a lot more now that you're a deacon, trying to hold back from saying things.
Yeah, especially now, but even before, it's we hear in Scripture when Jesus says, I haven't come to bring peace. I've come to turn father against son and daughter against mother, and that's because when we put Christ first in our lives, when we love Him above all things, many people don't rub Him the right way. And most of those people are usually close ones and family members. So yeah, you see that. I mean, I won't lie to you. There's probably less family parties I get invited to.
Really?
Because if I see something, I have to speak up. And this is even before I was a deacon,
like what types of things?
To be honest with you, I have a lot of aunts and uncles who allow their children to drink, even though they're not 21 years old. Things like that. From underage drinking to premarital sex, and this even includes minors. There's just some things that, as Christians, we have to speak up, no matter who it's against. And this is why I'm raising my children. And my children, because of that, they are raised on those convictions, and they believe on our Christian principles that they're not exactly the most popular kids in their schools either.
So do you think some of these relatives or friends are like, oh well, he's too good for us now type thing, or is it sort of them just trying to be shy because
Yeah, I think it's that. It's more them as just hiding it now, right? Not saying that I'm just too good for them, because I tell them I'm not, man. I'm a sinner. I still make mistakes. Yeah, exactly. I still got to go to confession. But it's the struggle with it, right? Acknowledging that there's a struggle and you struggle with it rather than accepting it. It's a big difference, right? Yeah.
So do you ever have people who kind of tease you, hey, you're a deacon now,
Yeah. My friends, I still hang around a lot of my friends from high school and stuff. And so I like it because they're always the most respectful ones. we'll be in conversations, and they'll start saying something. They're like, let me not say that no more. Yeah. So, heck, it's helping them become better Christians, right? I mean, that's the thing.
You never know how with the chain reaction that it leads to.
And it does lead to chain reactions. It does. It really does, in beautiful ways.
Like you getting reconnected with your biological father, that could have its repercussions through his family as well.
It has, because he's been watching Catholic masses, especially when his son's on
that's
on YouTube.
awesome.
So yeah. So yeah, it does. And he's always sending me things about, hey, I read this in scripture. Can you explain that to me? And so, yeah, that's the whole purpose, right? That's the whole purpose of bringing everyone back to Jesus.
So what is your daily life like as a deacon? What kind of requirements are there? I mean, are there similar requirements to like that of a priest, where you have to pray a certain amount of times a day?
Yeah.
What are
so we have to do our morning and evening prayer. I mean, the official words is lauds for morning and vespers for evening.
Okay.
And so so we do morning prayer and evening prayer. So the priests are called to do all 7 prayers, because they have the office hours, and then they have morning, they got mid-morning, and they got midday and mid-after. So they're called to do that. But as deacons, we're called to do the morning and the evening only. I mean, after all, we got a job. We got we got to go to work. We got to
So this morning and evening prayer, is there a required amount of time, certain types of prayers that you're supposed to say?
Okay, so it's the liturgy of the hours. I'm sorry. So when I say morning prayer and evening prayer, it's from the liturgy of the hours books.
Okay.
And so usually when one does it by themselves, you could do it in around 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. So it's not a huge time commitment.
No, it's not. And I always do mine in the morning with a cup of coffee.
Okay.
And then the ideal time you're supposed to do it is at 6 in the morning, and then the evening prayer at 6 in the evening. But I'm always doing my morning prayer earlier than that, because I wake up earlier. And then my evening prayer, I'm usually doing it at night when I should be doing my night prayer, but God knows I'm doing it when I can. So
is your wife required to do any types of
she's not required. No, she's not required to do any type of prayer, but just a side story on that, it's very beautiful, is one of the things that the devil hates is the sacrament of matrimony. That he above everything else, he can't stand that, because sacrament of matrimony literally calls for 100% sacrificial love of one for the other, right? It's only matched, and it's not even matched, or it's not called to be matched, even with children and their parents. And the only other act that matches is Jesus on the cross. And that's why it's so important for husband and wife to always pray together. So it was interesting, because I consider myself to be a good Catholic family man. I pray. And so you go through formation, and they're always asking, are you praying together? Oh, of course we're praying. So the second to last year, they call it, again, one of the meetings they call you into. And this was a spiritual director. And she goes, y'all two pray? Like, yes, every day we gather our children, we pray together. And she's like, no. Do you and Dennysse pray alone? I'm like, well, but we have kids, right? We're supposed to, and she's like, no, y'all need to pray
alone together.
Alone. And it's the most wonderful thing, because the ideas they give you are wonderful. So we will, every evening we pray alone in our rooms. And we leave the door open so that the kids could hear, or if they walk in, they see mom and dad praying. We have a candlelight, and it just reinforces to them what marriage is, and it reinforces our marriage. But now we're human. When I say we're human, we got children. We have 6, for crying out loud. Sometimes we'll forget. So this is real funny, Rudy, and this happens more times than it should. But it just is. We'll be in bed. We'll be almost half asleep, and she'll be like, Ray, we forgot to pray. Oh. And I reach over. I reach my leg over to hers. Where's your foot? Let's touch our feet, and let's go ahead and just do Our Father real quick. But it's the obedience of it, the discipline of it, that we are praying every night together, right? And so, and it has. I will tell you, the biggest fruit that came out of the diaconal formation is my marriage, strengthening my marriage.
Really,
it literally not just highlights, but it gleams a huge a light 100 times brighter than that one through all the gaps in your marriage. It does. Because that's one thing they protect is the marriage.
And then so it shines a light on those gaps, and then you know where you can work on the areas that you need to.
Miss Marine, we call her. That's her name, Miss Marine. And at the end of every semester, we do a marriage class.
Okay.
And Miss Marine comes in there, and she's like, all those men are like, she's about to put us in hot water again. So it starts off. She talks about marriage. And then she gives you 10 questions. Your wife goes off one way, you go off the other. You'll answer the questions by yourselves, and you'll come together and reflect for the rest of the day. First year we did this. The first year you do this is in those 4 years I was telling you about, right?
Uh-huh.
First years you did this. Okay, I got the questions. Okay, I'm like, all right, that's easy. No, yes, yes to this, no to that. Our meeting place for me and Dennysse was in our car. She comes in the car. And she literally had so much to write, she had to write on the back. And she looked at my paper and she's like, this is what's missing from our marriage. I'm like, what just happened? It really got serious, really, to the point where I'm like, well, then maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe this deacon thing isn't for us. I mean, obviously we got to work on our marriage. And every year, the last year, I get into the car because I'm like, okay, here's my annual beatdown. And she looks at me and she goes, don't worry, this year you passed. And it was the most beautiful moment ever because I broke down. I had been working, like trying to fill those gaps, trying to do more. Yeah. And we broke down and we cried together, which we do a lot now, which is something, again, I was raised, hey, men don't cry.
Yeah.
And it was just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful how our marriage is so strong because of Miss Marine. The one lady who I thought was the devil, all of a sudden she's actually my savior. Because
so that first time you're rolling your eyes and you're thinking, oh gosh.
I was like, yeah, all those men. Every time us men would see her coming to the classroom, we're like, oh, here we go, guys. Here we go.
And then it's year after year with her, and then finally.
Yeah, the last year. And because of course, we have to have a very strong marriage, right?
Of course.
Because again, and that's one thing I like is that they stress is we're husband first. Mm-hmm. In our exit meeting is a one-on-one, us with the cardinal. And every one of those exit meeting, the cardinal looks, he's talking to her, not to us.
Okay.
And tells them that if the pastor is keeping your husband away from the house, to call me. And he gives them he gives them his number.
Oh, wow.
You call me directly.
Wow.
If your pastor is keeping your husband away from his duties. And so they love that. He's all nice and beautiful with the wives, you know? No, he's an awesome man. He's a great man.
So aside from the prayers, mm-hmm. what other requirements as a deacon?
So we had our mandatory was our social ministry, which was for 3 years. You start doing your social ministry, and I'll get into that here in a minute. Your last 2 years in formation. If you notice, everything almost starts the last 2 years of formation. That's when it gets serious. Mm-hmm. And then, so you do your first 2 years your last 2 years in formation, and then 1 year after, right? Okay. I've done that. I've already done that, but I'm gonna continue it. So social ministry, they could either put you in prison ministry, hospital ministry. It could be to help retired clergy ministry.
Okay. So how often is this?
Once a week.
Once a week.
We're called to put in 2 hours a week.
Okay.
8 hours a week. 8 hours a month.
Okay.
And so I do juvenile detention, which I like. I mean,
it's not a huge commitment. It's only 2 hours a week.
It's not. No. Yeah, it's not a huge commitment. It's only 2 hours a week because again, we have
families.
We have families. Yes. We got jobs. So that's what that's on the requirement. And then we have to continue with some type of social ministry afterwards, right? If not that, it's got to be some kind.
Okay. So you said juvenile ministry.
Yeah, juvenile detention.
Okay.
So, which is up here in North Katy. I do, it's called leadership.
Okay.
And I do one-on-ones. So I go in there and we just talk. I talk with a lot of kids, and These kids, a lot of these kids, they never had a chance. They really didn't. You hear their story and they never had a chance. And all I do, because at night, after I leave, we have another group come in and do Bible study with them and all that. All I sit down and I say, hey, what do you like to do? What makes you happy? You know? And then, Deacon Rey, I like a rap. Well, rap something to me. Tell me something, but without the cuss words, but rap it to me, you know? Because no one ever asks them that. Like, what do they want to do? What do they like to do?
Yeah.
So we have a good time with it. And after a few weeks, because I'm there for 2 hours, so I try to only talk to four children. So I each have 30 minutes with them.
Okay.
And then once they leave the program, I'll ask. I'll bring in another one and to fit that slot.
Do you ever get any of those types of kids that'll roll their eyes and say, "Oh, here comes that preachy guy"? Or,
not really.
Oh, it's somebody from the church, you know?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Because I'm asking them. They're coming to me.
Okay.
So I'll go into one of the units and I'll say, "Who wants to pray?" Right.
Okay.
I'm sure they get that whenever the prayer group comes later on and do the scripture reading, and I'm sure they do that because then they can make all the units come together for that. But no, for me, it's more people who want to pray, want to get something off their chest.
So they come to you. So they give them the option to meet with somebody.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So it's
how challenging is it?
It's it's not. It's oh my God. It's beautiful because these kids listen to me more than my own children do, you know? And so, no, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing because when you go in there and they see you and they're like, oh, you know, and and that's why I hate what's going on right now because we can't go see them right now.
Yes.
Because all these kids do not have father figures in their lives. And they have been lied to and been given so many empty promises. I'm there every week. They can count on me. Every week. They're like, are you going to come back next week? I said, I'll watch. I'll be back next week. Watch. And I'm always there every week. And they look for you. I mean, when you're in the unit and they see you coming, they're ready. Oh, they're telling the supervisor, the officer, hey, Deacon Rey's here for me. Deacon Rey's here for me. So, yeah. Yeah. So no, it's a beautiful experience. I've grown so much spiritually because of it.
Are there really heartbreaking stories?
A
lot of them.
Very heartbreaking story. All of them. Most of them are. Most of them. I've had one kid who was a spoiled brat. I told me, I said, and I walked with him. I said, you're a spoiled brat. Because I ask him questions, and I always tell him, I don't work for the judge. I don't work for the police officer. I'm a volunteer. I said, I don't answer to no one here. Everything you tell me, I'm only going to give it up to God at night. That's it. I just let you, because I want to build that confidence, that trust with me, right? And I'll ask them questions about their life so I can know I can help them and so one of the questions I asked, I said, so how's your relationship with your mom and your dad? So all of them, most of them say they don't have a dad. And so, sometimes they'll, when they do, I'm like, man, how was that like? Because I didn't have my biological dad. So I try to find ways to connect with them, But they're all heartbreaking stories. Again, they never had a chance. Never had a chance. And so at first, it's hard for them to believe me. That people are, like, there's actually human beings out there like me. That I'm just here to help them. Because one of the questions they always ask me, Rudy, is how much I'm getting paid to be there. I'm like, I'm not getting paid nothing to be here. I want to be here for you.
Because every single person they've met has some sort of angle.
Exactly. Trying to get something out of them. And it's...
So they've got that barrier right away when you meet them.
Right away.
Is it scary going in the first time?
At first it was. Scary. Yeah.
Because, you pass through all the metal detectors and all of that stuff.
And I've never been in a prison. That was the first time I ever done that. And so, yeah, it was. It was very scary, but that was just the first time. And now I look forward to looking at those kids.
Was that the biggest obstacle, it being scary?
Yeah, it was. My biggest obstacle was these kids already been disappointed enough. I didn't want to add to that. And I always pray a lot. See, Thursdays I spend here, and that's when I would go see them. So I always would pray an hour before I take off in front of the tabernacle, and to make sure I give them wisdom, Lord. I don't want to add to their disappointment. So, yeah. So it's been very tough with my kids that are in there, and they know they can't see me. And
I like how you refer to them as your kids.
Oh yeah, they really are. They are.
So is it something that you'd recommend to people to do,
Yes.
or is it not for everybody? Or
I think this is a wonderful ministry for dads, right? Young dads, young dads. It's a wonderful ministry because it's helped me be a better father, right? Help me be a better father and go home and tell my kids, you guys are so ungrateful. Y'all don't know what y'all have. I'm not as bad as y'all said I was. I know that. I have proof. So yeah, it does. So you hear stories and it makes you more appreciative. It makes you love your children more too.
I know what you mean because I used to work in a school that was very poor, and it was one of those Title I schools, and a lot of the kids were poor there. And you look at some of the kids, and like you said, they don't have a chance.
Yeah,
And then you go and you look at your kids and you're like, gosh, I'm so lucky, or my kids are lucky.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these kids, I mean, their situations.
Yeah, I know.
It's heartbreaking.
It is. And I mean, we just pray. We pray for them, and sometimes that's hard for me too because I'm a doer. I want to do, and you can't. And that's helped me with my prayer life because the only way I can help them is prayer. And that's actually the best way. But again, we have to fix, and prayer allows us to trust Jesus that he's going to be the one who fixes it all for us.
So this prison ministry, you're going to continue that?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to continue that. Yeah. And so I worked it out to where most of the stuff I do here are on Thursdays. Right?
Okay.
So I'm here I usually dedicate my Thursdays here.
Okay.
So.
And then aside from the praying in the morning and at night and the 2 hours of that's required, what else is required of you
So
as a deacon?
So deacon, diakonia, is a Greek word meaning service. So we're called to serve in every way, right? And so that's what we do. Service meaning outreach, right? So that's what I do here. Outreach is what I do, and that's before we put on the cool vestments and are up there and preaching and reading and proclaiming the gospel. That's the reason why our vestment has sleeves, because we're called to roll up our sleeves and get to work. And that's what we're called to be, is out there. Because we can relate. We're part of that secular world, right? I mean, we have mortgages and bills and all that stuff and worries and kids in college. And so
is it an everyday thing?
Everyday thing. I could tell you myself, I'm every day doing outreach.
Okay.
Every day answering some email, someone needing help, someone needing guidance or prayer.
So not necessarily coming into the church every day.
Not coming into the church.
But just making phone calls, talking to people, maybe driving over to meet people.
Exactly.
Are you on call all the time?
Depending on call by, what do you mean as far as?
Like say for example, somebody's in crisis and they say, okay,
We'll get an email, and so Father will ask if one of his deacons can handle it, if they can handle it. But yeah, our work is outside the church. Our main work is outside the church.
Okay.
As deacons, we shouldn't be spending too much time in the church. We are our work is out there. That's our main ministry, is out there.
So how does the decision come about whether or not to send the priest or one of the deacons to?
If they want confession. Usually it's confession. If they want to get confessed, it's got to be a priest.
It's got to be.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But a lot of times we do funeral services and that are at the nursing homes, right? The funeral homes, excuse me. Mm-hmm. We'll do the funeral services there. So blessings of homes, we'll do a lot of blessings. We'll go to blessing of homes and stuff of that nature. Again, it depends on the situation, on what it's going to require a deacon or a priest.
So those things you are able to do, blessings of homes.
Yes. I could baptize, marry. I could marry someone. And
have you ever done
that's the only thing I have. I have not married.
So you've baptized?
I've many.
Really?
Many.
Okay. I would have thought that they'd want to really reserve that for the priests and only for...
No, like our baptism we do here at the parish are on the second Saturdays of every month, and it's mainly the deacons do them. Okay. So this past Saturday I baptized 6 children.
You ever have any people who say, no, we want a priest?
Some do. And that's if they do that, that's fine. I understand that, Mm-hmm. That's usually because of people who grew up in areas where they didn't have deacons.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of communities, especially like in Hispanic communities, I'm teaching them what a deacon means, right? Because they go, call me padre. And I always tell them there's only 6 people who have that right, you know. They always in Spanish ask me, aren't you a father? I said to 6 people. I said 6 people have the right to call me dad. I said that's it. But yeah, so I haven't done a marriage yet, but I've as far as presided over it, right?
I mean, there are lots of communities. Like you said, I spent a lot of time in the Philippines. They don't have deacons there.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You've got lay ministers, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of, I guess, a learning curve as well for the people to understand which is why I'm asking you these questions.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So baptismal, you can marry someone. You haven't done that yet.
No, I haven't done that yet.
What other things are you?
Well, the funeral liturgy. We're able to do a funeral. So, like I said, if it's going to be here in the church, usually the priest would do it, right? Because this is. But a lot of times we'll do it at funeral homes because it costs money to transport over here, right? Economic purposes. We find ourselves, to transport over here, getting police officers, having to bring it to the church.
Yes. And
we find ourselves even doing a lot of funerals with ashes because again. Burying someone costs so much money.
Yes.
And the church allows that now. It's allowed it since 1983. So we have that and any type of blessings. I think the coolest thing was being able to sanctify water, make quote unquote make holy water.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah. That was pretty neat at first, yeah. And so
like I can make holy water now.
I can make holy water, exactly. And like what?
So are there any requirements for holy water? It just has to be clean water? Or
natural water, natural clean water. Yeah, it's natural. I don't know why they say natural. I don't know. Is there any synthetic water? I don't know, but it's got to be natural. That's what it says in the canon law.
Okay.
Yeah, just natural water. But I think the most out of all, baptizing. Wow, that's... Remember the first time I did a baptism was a week after I got ordained. Yeah, here. So
how did that feel?
It was just amazing. I was crying.
I can imagine.
I told them, I said, "Hey, this is my first baptism, so excuse me if I cry a little bit." But yeah, it was beautiful.
And it's a family that goes here to.
Yeah, there's usually families that go here. Yeah, because this is a group. These ain't private baptisms here. We have we get a number of them, and then we bring them in.
So you still see those kids.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you'll watch them grow.
Yeah,
too.
watch them grow. Yeah, I'll see them for their first communion and I'll be like, hey, I was there. I provided the way you to become part of God's family. Is
that a humbling feeling?
Very humbling. Being a deacon is a humbling feeling because I know I could easily name off 100 men who should be deacons and are not. And I know we always hear, God qualifies the call, not call to qualify. But I'm like, my gosh, he was really showing off with me. I tell you that right now, with him stretching his man, Because
what's the biggest difference do you see in yourself from before becoming a deacon, like before the entire process until now?
So again, I mentioned earlier was being a better husband. Mm-hmm. That was for sure. Mm-hmm. Now it's just my faith is 100% conscience on my mind all the time. I mean, literally all the time. Every decision I make, it's just part of it. Even, being a business owner with that too now, it's there. It's just things that, picking up your phone in the morning and reading doing daily reading. Just something that before it used to be Facebook. You know what I'm saying? Then check my social media. Right now it's just reading doing that is just making myself always conscious of my faith. So
what kind of business, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, of course.
What kind of business are you into?
I'm in the oil and gas industry. So we manufacture maintenance products for water, oil, and gas pipelines.
Okay.
So I've had the company since 2007. So that's why I was saying earlier how my other old pastor, Father John, thought I could help Father Dad in starting something from nothing, because that's what I do with
because
my
of your
company.
experience.
Yeah. Of just starting a business. Father Dad always hates it, but when we talk about the church, I talk about it in a business sense, because you have to. How do we keep the clientele? What do we got to, the logistics of it and the finances,
just the logistics,
the managing of it and everything. So but we got wonderful people here who are doing it now. So it was assuring for me to have to start backing off a little bit, and then Then when Deacon Randy got here, I got to back off of liturgy, and it was good because I got to I was getting near the end of my formation, and so that going back to that fire of starting this parish.
Yes,
is all of a sudden I get a phone call from the diocese. Well, the new year is about to start. I'm like, what? New year? What are you talking about? We wanted to see when we could schedule your home visit to get you back in formation. And so something that I initially said I'm done with, the fire of starting this parish is what pushed me to go back.
Okay, so when Saint Faustina, when the whole thing came to you, you were on pause.
Was the 2-year postponement time.
Wow.
Tell me, that's how the Holy Spirit works.
That's amazing.
It was during those 2 years, because I would have never done it. And think about it, Rudy, I'd still
you were at that point, you were like, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Forget being a deacon. This isn't happening. No.
Yeah. And then I would still be, even if had they not postponed me, I'd still be at St. Bartholomew. I would have never been here.
Do you miss it? St. Bart's?
I used to, but this is my family now. This is where I belong. So no.
Was there ever a point where in the beginning of St. Faustina, when things were getting really rough, that you just wish that you were back at St. Bart's?
Honestly, if I have to confess, the first couple years of really when we started this place, because it was more like work to me. Again, I was going on obedience to my pastor. My pastor told me to do this. My grandmother says you always do what the pastor says. Mm-hmm. Right? So I'm like, so not only had I got postponed, right? Not only had God, quote unquote, God postponed me, but now he's running me away from my own parish.
Yes.
You see that?
The one that you've been at since you were 9 years old.
Yeah. The one that literally saved me, really, my life, because, before I went back to the parish, back to our faith, actually, I wasn't a good Christian. So this is a community that saved me.
Yes.
A community that welcomed me.
Where your first 3 kids had all their sacraments.
Yeah. So, God, what are you doing? What am I doing wrong? So, So it was work. I literally, in my heart, this was work. I was still going to Mass over there, still part over there. Even after we opened St. Faustina, I was still a catechist teacher over there. It was this.
So you were going back and forth.
I was going back and forth. Because, again, this was work for me.
Wow. When did it stop becoming...
When it stopped becoming work was literally the second year in my program at that time, and the 4 year. So that would be the 5th, 6th, the 4th year. So the second year and the 4 year official part is when it stopped, and that was because of baptisms. That's when I had joined the baptism ministry, and it just moved me. It just did. I don't know how else to explain it. But I think at that point, too, I started to really accept that this is my ministry, right? And so I stopped looking at, God, why are you punishing me to, or where are you calling me? And so, I'm so happy.
So have you looked at some of the men in our parish the way one of the deacons looked at you and said, hey...
Yeah, there's a couple. Yeah, and that's why I actually caught a couple to be part of that 2025, God willing.
So you've already plucked a couple yourself.
Yeah, I have. And I love it because they said the same thing I did, there's no way I can't do this kind of stuff. And so it's like, again, God's like, Do
you see yourself in some of them?
I do. And that's the reason why I called them. Right, the reason why I call them, because I see myself in them in the way that they administer. I always look at that first. I don't know, maybe it's a business side of me, right? Because the spirituality, that's going to grow in formation. It did for me. I like to see the way they hold themselves, how they carry themselves. Right? If something's going wrong, that's why I want to see them. I want to see how they act to it.
How they react to
it. Yeah, how they react to a crisis, right?
So you don't necessarily have to be in a certain place spiritually to even start the process of becoming a deacon.
No, you don't. The only thing you have to do is outreach is what I look at. And that's the main thing. What are they doing outside the parish? Because I've had men, and I'll tell you, Rudy, I've had men come to me and thought that they were thinking about the formation. I told them to pray more. Because they'd be like, well, I'm an EOM. I'm part of this ministry, I'm part of that ministry. And I'm like, it's wonderful that you're living out your baptismal mission. That's beautiful. But what are you doing outside the church? Right? And a lot of times they won't have an answer. And I said, pray about that some more. Just pray some more on that. Because that's what the diaconal formation is looking at, right? Because what you do in the parish, that's part of we're all called to do it, right? We're all through our baptism.
Yes.
And so the men I've called are men who are out there helping those who are in need out there. That's because that's what's going to require.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do. That's going to be their first role as a deacon is service to others.
So what are your plans for the future of St. Faustina, or your future as a deacon?
So, I mean, plans for St. Faustina to just continue going like we're going, right? That's for sure. As far as me, growing up, I was never a good student. School didn't go good with me. So again, I feel like that's the Holy Spirit now, again, with his sense of humor, because I'm continuing my education. So when you go in formation, you either could go through the degree program or certificate program.
Okay.
Well, I went to the certificate program because when you go to the degree program, you do a mini-mester in the summer.
Okay.
You go in there 4 days a week, every day for 3 hours for a whole 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, because you're knocking out 1 3-hour course. I couldn't do that. I got small kids. I mean, summertime, we're going summer vacation. We can't do that. So I went to the certificate.
Yes.
But I've immediately after my ordination, I went back to get my degree. So I'm getting my master's in pastoral study. That's a pastoral degree.
Okay.
Okay. That's what I'm actually this fall I'll be done. I have one more class. But at the same time, I'm doing online classes to get my master's in theology. Well, that's academic, so I'll be able to teach. I'll be done with that in the summer, a year from there. Then from there, I already found a program that they're able to. And all this is Catholic education.
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to find a program to continue getting my doctorate in theology. So I see myself one day teaching, and that's funny because I gave teachers so much problems growing up, and I'm like, again, God with a sense of humor. God. So I could just if I get to the point where I'm teaching, I get one of those students, I can't say nothing. I just feel like, look in the mirror, Ray. Look in the mirror. That was you. So your
kids, do you look at any of them as potential deacons, or taking up the cloth?
No, we as parents,
religious
I have
life of any sort?
as parents, we have 4 boys. So as parents, me and Dennysse were like, how awesome it'd be one of them was a priest, right? I mean, I feel like as a parent, you're like, I've done my job, Lord. Look, I've given you one of my children, right? You know? That should be a parent's automatic golden ticket into heaven, right? Like giving you a priest. But no, I don't push it on them. I don't, because the journey's so different. My journey was just crazy, right? And every journey, I guarantee every priest, every deacon has a story, and so I don't push that on my kids. We push our faith. I mean, they're going to be practicing it. That's for sure. But no, not that. I'll let that come.
Have they ever talked to you about it? Felt any pressure of any sort? Well, not even from you.
I mean, my older boys are like, "Oh, Dad, we're gonna participate in the church, but we ain't gonna do the deacon like you. So don't even try to bring that, right? Don't even try to bring that." So.
Do you laugh and say, "Yeah, that's what I used to think"?
I don't say that because these kids, I think to myself that. That's for sure.
Of course, to yourself.
Yeah, I think that to myself. That's for sure. But yeah, as long as they take their faith seriously and participate in it. I think as a parent, that's all we could ask for, right? Just be a good person, right? Mm-hmm. And that's they do that, I'm good. Priest or deacon or not, I'm good, right? And it's hard. I mean, I couldn't even imagine because especially, and it worked out perfect because remember I told you I got the 2 sets of kids.
Yes.
So people asked me about that. I said, well, it worked out perfect because by the time I was in the formation, my kids were older. They're in high school. You go through those phases where like, Dad. You don't want to hang around Dad too much at that time, right? So I was there for their main stuff, so they're okay with it. Now they're adults. And with the younger ones, they just grown up with it. It was just part of their life, right? This is part of their life.
There was no huge adjustment for the younger ones.
Yeah, there was really no adjustment for either side, right? And so, yeah, it's just a part of their lives. And so it worked out perfect. Because believe me, having small children, they were always constantly doing home visits. They were always calling us in. How's the kids? How's everybody?
Do they still do that?
No, it's too late now. I'm already a deacon now. No, now we have brother deacons. So when you're in formation, it's like boot camp.
Okay.
It is. That's why you have to do all these sacrifices. And that's why I tell these guys, I'm like, when I'm mentoring these guys in formation, I said, don't worry. Once you become a deacon, you're instant family. It's the most beautiful thing. If I don't have to miss any practicing anymore because I have Deacon Randy will cover for me, Deacon Ernie will cover me in the weekends. Forget about missing anything important in the weekend. It's not going to happen.
Okay.
Because my deacon brothers are going to cover for me. And if not them, I've covered for other deacons at their own parish because they had something important to do.
Okay.
That's what, so it's a beautiful family of brotherhood. That's for sure. Good fraternity. So, yeah.
You all get together as a group every once in a while?
I know our graduating class, before all this, right? We'd get together and as a group, just lay our hair down, right? We could lay our hair down and just be ourselves. It's very beneficial for the wives. I guess because they understand each other, right? Because I'm sure they go off on their own and they have their wines.
Similar experiences, similar issues that they have to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're able to speak their minds with other deacon wives, right?
Yeah, who are going through the same thing.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when we were in formation, they actually took classes on making sure we behave. It's crazy. Right? Like, make sure your husband ain't doing this. Make sure your husband is like, I can tell you, we cannot show any, what do they call it? Public affection, public PDA, public display of affection.
Really?
Yeah. Because again, going back to how many times have people called me father?
Yes. Oh, they may mistake.
There's people who think I'm a priest. And then, wow, did you see Father Ray kissing that woman? I saw that he was holding her hand at the mall. I saw him at Walmart,
Oh, wow.
So things like that. And making sure, because also, we just don't see many things. Making sure that when we're talking with people, where we're at, know our surroundings, right? Sometimes I'll be walking and I'll get in a conversation with some lady coming to me for advice, and all of a sudden the room gets empty. I need to be conscious of that.
Oh, yes.
I need to move.
Of course.
As guys, we don't see that, No. Yeah. And so they teach you, make sure your husbands, you're with them all the time. Like, I go do house blessings. I always take her because last thing I want to do is walk into a home and it's just the woman there.
Yes.
I can't go in. I'm sorry, ma'am.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, just somebody seeing from the outside, walking into that home alone. And
Exactly. Now,
isn't it sad that we have to worry about those things nowadays?
It is very sad, but it's also good because it promotes transparency.
That's true.
If that's what it's going to take, then, what's the saying? I know I'm not doing nothing wrong, so I don't mind. You know what I mean? I don't mind, if I got to do these, if I got to adhere to these rules, I'm fine with that. I could do that. So, but yeah, it's, we have to be very careful on those type of things. Conscience, and that's you talked about. What's the change? That's another change. Sometimes when I make a horrible mistake of going on social media, and I'm like, "Oh, I want to respond to that ignorance so bad." I'm like, "Drop your phone, Ray. Drop your phone. Do not respond."
Have you ever gotten into any really sticky situations?
So, with my homilies, sometimes I've preached about things. As we both are, as minorities, right? I preach about things, policies, and I'm very big on immigration, very big on unborn, and I'll preach about it. And I get emails.
Oh, you do?
I do get emails. So yeah, and
you get hate mail, huh? Not necessarily
not hate mail,
okay.
But yeah, I'm not very pleased with you, Deacon Ray, right now, and so. But I'm very careful about what I preach, and that it's doctrine, right? That it's coming, and just sometimes it's hard. But I know Father Dad, he's such a wonderful.
What was
supporter.
like one of the things
on dignity that we all deserve. We're all made in likeness of image of God, and so we all deserve the same dignity.
Mm-hmm.
Period. No matter where
and somebody will email you.
Yeah, no matter where I'm born, no matter where a person is born, they deserve the same dignity as me. No matter what, they deserve the same basic necessities as us, right? And so, I'll be right up there. And then whenever I say things like that, I always back up. I always bring up Humana Vitae. One of the big encyclicals I bring up, showing where it's in doctrine, where it's part of our laws. It's not only will we have to obey, but
you think it's politics?
It is. And so the responses I get are political, so I stay away from it. I always respond pastoral because there's no need for politics in here.
Yeah,
I'm only simply preaching on what we're called to obey. Mm-hmm. Simple as that. And so, things of that nature. One of them was not even recently had to do with. I just said, and we're on the 21st century, and so we have no business being in a society where there's social unrest. Right, we should all be treating each other equally.
Yes, it's hard to think that in this day and age.
And I got some pushback on that. That I was promoting. What was that, separatism? I don't know how it was, but it's. I think when things like that happen, we pray for them because there's a chord being struck in their lives, and that's the important issue. Not what's said, but why it was said. One of the things we learn as a deacon is when people ask you, "Hey, Deacon Rey, how are you doing?" Mm-hmm. Make sure they're not asking you because they want you to ask them. So I always come back and say, "Well, I'm doing great, but how are you doing? Let's talk. Let's sit down. Let's have a talk, right?" Mm. So it's why it was said more than what was said is what we look for as deacons.
Do people come up to you and ask you for advice on voting or anything like that?
No, I haven't had any political advice. Ask for political advice yet. So
do people come up to you and ask for endorsements of any?
No, they've only asked what political party I affiliate myself with, and I say none. I said as a practicing.
No candidates have come up to you and say, hey, could I get you?
Oh no, no. I get a bunch of text messages.
Who doesn't?
I know, right? So, but no, none of that. And so, it was funny because even before the diaconate came calling, I've always liked I'm in politics involved. I always thought myself that after a few years of being a business owner, that I may for the sake of civil rights, join in the political ring on some level. But no, this came calling, so you can't do.
It's both. A higher cause than politics.
It's definitely a higher cause. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Deacon Rey, it's a pleasure. Just hearing your story, and sitting down with you, and just what a journey you've been through.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful journey that's continuing, and so I think one of the things we can do with our journeys is just share it with others so that it could help them. Right, that's the whole purpose of our journeys is to help others in their way, to be a map for others who, no matter what stage of their journey they're at, to be a map for them.
Well, we look forward to having you here in St. Faustina for years to come.
I know. I hope so too. Right? I do. Father Dad keeps mentioning, God, they're going to take you away from me, Rey. They're going to take you away from me.
Is that a possibility?
Well, because of my studies and the fact that I'm bilingual. So it may be, but we'll see. Do
the fact that you still have young kids factor into that too? That they're
allowed to move me anywhere from 25-mile radius.
Okay.
But I think what Father Dad's thinking, not more going to another parish, but more being part of the directorship and administrative part of the ministry of our faith.
Okay.
So I think that's what he's talking about because, once I get done with my studies and then my business background, my business degrees, being bilingual, he said, they're going to find something for you to do. And he goes, it's not going to be here.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the past 8+ years have shown you have no idea where you're going to end up.
I have no idea where I'm going to end up, but I know that that I'm going to be at peace as long as I'm doing God's work. And so that's what I try to bring everywhere I go. Everyone I talk to, I don't mind sharing any stories about myself so they could, if anything, I pray that it gives them hope. If that guy could do it, right? If he could turn it around.
Well, thank you so much. Sure. I mean, for sitting down with us and, and telling your story, and hopefully this will give other people.
Yeah, thank
hope.
you so much for inviting me. This is pretty neat. It's the first time, like I said, I've ever been interviewed like this, right? The last time it's been like this is when I was applying for the diaconate, right?
Did they have a spotlight on you as well?
There was a team of them, and it was, tell me your weakness.
What is your biggest weakness?
What is your biggest weakness? What do we got to worry about with you? No, it's a wonderful ministry for anybody who listens to this interview and think about the diaconate. It is a wonderful journey, even for you too, Rudy. Even for you too.
Oh gosh, I was dreading that.
Even for you too. I mean, that's what they're looking for.
My computer.
We all hide at first, but God's got a way of grabbing us. Sometimes He drags us. So yeah, all of us have a story to tell and a journey to tell, and it benefits everyone. So the diaconate is a wonderful, wonderful ministry. It's a marathon, as we talked about, right? But for those who are called, one last note I wanted to bring up on this is that sometimes where God's calling us is through the diaconate formation, but it may not be for the diaconate. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I guarantee everyone who's entered into the program and had to leave for one reason or another is a better Christian for it, right? They're a better father, brother,
It's
son.
not a waste of time.
It's definitely not a waste of time. Definitely not. If anything, you've added many more books to your library. Because it's a lot of books, a lot of reading. So yeah.
For you and your wife.
For me and my wife, exactly. Yeah. But no, thank you so much for having me on your interview. This is awesome.
It's been a pleasure.